In the vibrant city of Chicago, where skyscrapers pierced the clouds and the streets were a patchwork of life, the sun set on the perfect couple, Sarah and Mike Thompson. They had the kind of relationship that people aspired to. They were the envy of their friends, always posting cheerful pictures on social media, smiling at each other as if they were the only two people in the world. Mike, a software engineer, was kind-hearted, dependable, and genuinely in love with Sarah. He worked long hours, hoping to secure a better future for them both. Sarah, on the other hand, was a strikingly beautiful marketing executive. She had long, flowing chestnut hair, sharp green eyes that sparkled with mischief, and a confidence that filled a room. Her laughter was infectious, and her ability to charm anyone was remarkable. But beneath the surface, her ambition overshadowed her loyalty. As her career soared, she found herself increasingly drawn to her boss, Derek, a man whose suave demeanor and sharp intellect captivated everyone around him. Derek was the quintessential alpha male. Tall, dark-haired, and impossibly charming. He had an air of confidence that could sway even the most skeptical. With an impeccable suit and an equally impressive resume, he was the kind of man who commanded attention. Sarah found herself entangled in a web of desire and ambition, igniting a passion she had never felt before. As Sarah climbed the corporate ladder, Mike became increasingly consumed by his work. He loved Sarah deeply but often overlooked the growing distance between them. Late nights spent at the office, coupled with frequent business trips, became a routine. Little did Mike know, every time Sarah stepped out of their shared apartment, she was inching closer to a forbidden affair. It was at the annual company gala that the spark ignited. The room was filled with laughter, clinking glasses, and the scent of expensive perfume. As the employees mingled, Sarah felt a familiar thrill course through her veins. She was dressed in a form-fitting red dress that accentuated her curves, a daring choice that turned heads. Derek, dressed in a tailored navy suit, was holding court at the bar, regaling his audience with stories of corporate triumphs. As Sarah approached, she felt a rush of adrenaline. They exchanged flirty banter, their chemistry palpable. Mike, oblivious to the tension in the air, chatted amiably with his coworkers, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing just a few feet away. "Sarah, you look stunning tonight," Derek said, his eyes lingering on her just a moment longer than necessary. "Why don't we grab a drink together?" She felt a jolt of excitement. "I'd love that." They moved to a quieter corner of the gala, where the music was softer, and the lights dimmed just enough to create an intimate atmosphere. As they sipped their drinks, Sarah felt herself leaning closer to Derek, captivated by his charisma and confidence. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, and for the first time in a long while, she felt alive. "Mike's a lucky guy," Derek said, a smirk playing on his lips. "But I've always believed that behind every great man is a woman who's not afraid to take what she wants." The words struck a chord in Sarah. She was tired of being the dutiful wife, the supportive partner. She wanted to reclaim her identity, and in that moment, she decided she would embrace the thrill of the unknown. As the weeks passed, Sarah found herself increasingly entangled in her affair with Derek. It started with stolen kisses in the office supply room, heart-racing moments in elevators, and secret rendezvous at upscale hotels. Each encounter was laced with passion and adrenaline, pushing her further away from the life she once cherished with Mike. Derek had a magnetic personality that drew Sarah in like a moth to a flame. He was bold, unapologetic, and, in her eyes, everything Mike was not. He pushed her boundaries, igniting desires she didn't know existed. Their late-night escapades turned into a whirlwind of lust and excitement, creating a world where the consequences of her actions felt non-existent. But Sarah's heart was not entirely devoid of guilt. There were moments, fleeting but sharp, when she thought of Mike. The way he would smile when he walked through the door, the little notes he would leave for her, reminding her how much he loved her. Yet, the thrill of her double life kept her trapped in a whirlwind of emotions, torn between two worlds. One evening, Sarah was getting ready for another secret rendezvous with Derek. She stood in front of her mirror, the seductive red lipstick contrasting with her pale skin. She could hear Mike in the kitchen, humming softly as he prepared dinner. The smell of his favorite dish, chicken Alfredo, wafted through the air, and her heart sank with guilt. She quickly shoved the feeling aside, reminding herself that she was in control. "Hey, babe, dinner's almost ready," Mike called out, his voice warm and inviting. "Just a minute," she replied, forcing a smile. As she adjusted her dress, her phone buzzed with a message from Derek. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Just finished a meeting and I'm all yours." The affair escalated, and with each passing day, the burden of secrets grew heavier on Sarah's conscience. It was a Thursday evening when the breaking point arrived. After a passionate evening with Derek, Sarah returned home, her heart pounding. Mike was already asleep, oblivious to the storm raging within her. In the darkness of their bedroom, guilt clawed at her. She turned to Mike, watching his peaceful face illuminated by the moonlight. She felt a wave of anger wash over her. How could she let herself become so lost in this facade? She shook him awake, and he blinked at her, confusion clouding his eyes. "Sarah? What's wrong?" he murmured, concern evident in his voice. "I can't do this anymore," she confessed, her voice trembling. "I need to tell you something." Mike sat up, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. "What is it? You're scaring me." Taking a deep breath, she began her confession, each word slicing through the silence like a knife. "I've been seeing someone else. It's Derek, my boss." "I'm so sorry, Mike." His expression shifted from confusion to disbelief, and finally to hurt. "You're joking, right? This isn't funny, Sarah." She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "I'm not lying. I never wanted to hurt you. I just what? You threw away everything we built for what? A fling?" His voice rose, anger creeping in. "It's not just a fling," she snapped, her emotions boiling over. "I've been unhappy for a while. You're always working, and I felt alone." "Alone? So you decided to betray me?" Mike's voice was barely above a whisper, the hurt evident in his eyes. "How could you? I was stupid. I thought I could handle it, that it was just physical." Sarah could feel the weight of her actions crashing down on her. Mike got out of bed, pacing the room in disbelief. "You could have talked to me. We could have worked on it together. Did you even notice me?" She shot back, her voice rising in frustration. "You're always so focused on your career. I felt invisible." The air in the room thickened with tension. Mike stood there, his heart racing, processing the betrayal. "You made a choice, Sarah. You chose him over us." She felt the finality of his words sink in, the realization that she had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. "I know I messed up. I never meant for it to go this far." Mike turned away, anger and pain etched across his face. "So what now? You're just going to go back to him? Is that it?" "No, I don't know what to do. I'm so confused," she shouted, the desperation in her voice echoing against the walls. He shook his head, disbelief mixing with sadness. "You think I'm just going to sit here and let you walk away? This isn't just a game, Sarah. This is my life." For the first time, Sarah felt the reality of her actions crashing down. She was a stranger in her own home, a woman trapped in the chaos of her choices. "I don't want to lose you," she whispered, the tears flowing freely now. "But I can't pretend everything is fine either." Mike looked at her, his eyes searching for the woman he once knew. "What do you want?" "I don't know," she replied, feeling lost. "I need time to figure this out." "Time?" he echoed, his voice laced with disbelief. "You think time will fix this? You've broken my trust." In the days that followed, the aftermath of the confession hung heavy in the air like a storm cloud. Mike had moved to the couch, giving Sarah space to process the chaos she had unleashed. The silence was deafening, and every moment felt like a painful reminder of what was lost. Sarah's heart ached, torn between the allure of Derek and the love she once had for Mike. She threw herself into work, trying to avoid the reality of her situation, but it lingered like a ghost. At the office, Derek had become increasingly brazen, sending flirtatious texts during the day, but she could hardly enjoy them anymore. Each time her phone buzzed with a message from Derek, guilt washed over her, pulling her deeper into a pit of despair. One evening, while sitting at her desk, Sarah glanced at her phone. Derek had sent her a message that read, "Can we meet tonight? I need to see you." She felt a flutter of excitement, but it quickly faded as she thought about Mike on the couch, staring blankly at the television, a shadow of the man he used to be. Torn between her desires and her conscience, Sarah sat in silence, her fingers hovering over the screen, contemplating her next move. Finally, she sent a simple response, "I can't tonight." Derek's reply came almost immediately, "Why not? What's going on?" Sighing, she placed her phone down. The weight of her choices felt crushing, and she realized she couldn't continue living a double life. The fun and thrill had faded, leaving only guilt and confusion. The next day at work, she ran into Derek in the break room. He was leaning against the counter, his casual posture radiating confidence. "Hey, you didn't answer my text last night. Everything okay?" Sarah hesitated, searching for the right words. "I just needed some space," she said, her voice shaky. Derek raised an eyebrow, a sly smile creeping onto his lips. "You know we can't just pretend this isn't happening, right? You're mine, Sarah. You chose me." His words sent a shiver down her spine. "I didn't choose you over Mike like that," she protested weakly, feeling the enormity of her situation pressing down on her. "Come on, don't deny what's between us. It's exciting. It's passion. You can't find that with him," Derek replied, leaning closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "He'll never give you what you want." "I don't know what I want," she exclaimed, pulling away. "This was supposed to be fun, but it's a mess now." Derek sighed, his expression shifting to one of annoyance. "You're being dramatic. Just come over tonight. We can figure this out." "I can't," she said firmly, the reality of her choices starting to sink in. "I need to talk to Mike. I owe him that much." "Fine," Derek snapped, frustration bubbling to the surface. "But don't take too long, Sarah. You'll regret it if you do." That evening, Sarah gathered the courage to confront Mike. She had spent the entire day dreading this moment, but she knew it was necessary. She found him still on the couch, the glow of the television flickering across his face. He looked up as she approached, his expression a mix of curiosity and caution. "Can we talk?" she asked softly, taking a seat across from him. "Is this about Derek?" he asked bluntly, his eyes narrowing. "Yes," she replied, taking a deep breath. "I've been thinking about everything, and I realize I need to make a decision." Mike's expression hardened. "And what decision is that? To go back to him? To throw away our life for a fling?" "No," she exclaimed, shaking her head. "I want to find a way back to us. I need you to understand that I never wanted to hurt you." "You've hurt me more than you know, Sarah," he said, his voice low and pained. "Every moment I spent thinking everything was okay was a moment wasted. You've stolen my trust." "I know. I messed up, and I'm so sorry," she pleaded. "But I don't want to lose you. I've been feeling lost, and instead of talking to you, I made a terrible mistake. I was looking for excitement and validation, and I found it in all the wrong places." "Do you love him?" Mike asked, his voice tight. Sarah hesitated, the question hanging in the air like a noose. "I don't know. I was infatuated, but that doesn't mean I don't love you. I made a mistake, but it doesn't define who I am. It doesn't change the fact that I care about you deeply." "Caring isn't enough, Sarah. Love is about trust and commitment, and you've shattered that," he said, his voice rising in frustration. "What's to stop you from doing this again?" "I'll do whatever it takes to rebuild that trust," she insisted, her voice breaking. "I'll go to therapy. We can work through this. I'll cut all ties with Derek. I swear." "You think that's enough?" Mike's expression was pained, a blend of anger and sadness. "You think you can just erase this and expect everything to go back to normal?" "I don't know, but I'm willing to try. Please, Mike," she pleaded, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I can't lose you. You mean everything to me. Mike sat in silence, his expression conflicted as he processed her words. How can I believe you? He finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. Sarah felt her heart racing, the enormity of her choices crashing down on her. Because I'm here willing to fight for us. I know I've messed up, but I need you to give me a chance to prove it. Prove it how? He asked, skepticism dripping from his voice. I'll talk to Derek. I'll tell him it's over, she said firmly, determination taking root. I'll stop seeing him completely. And what if he doesn't let you go? Mike asked, his brow furrowed. I won't let him control me. I'll make it clear that it's done. I can do this, she insisted, desperate for him to believe her. You realize he's not going to just accept that, right? He's used to getting what he wants. Mike warned, anger flaring. I'll handle it. Just trust me, she begged, her heart pounding in her chest. Mike sighed, rubbing his temples. Trust is a two-way street, Sarah. You've broken my trust. It's not something I can just give back. I understand, but please, let's work on this together. I don't want to lose you, she implored, her voice trembling. With a resigned sigh, Mike looked away, his heart heavy with doubt. Fine, but if you're serious about this, you need to make it clear to Derek. No more games. The next day, Sarah steeled herself for the confrontation with Derek. Her heart raced as she arrived at the office, knowing she had to face the man who had turned her life upside down. As she entered the break room, she spotted Derek leaning against the counter, his usual confident demeanor radiating from him. Hey, beautiful, he said, flashing his charming smile. You're looking gorgeous today. Ready for our little rendezvous? Derek, we need to talk, Sarah said, her voice steady despite her nerves. He raised an eyebrow, his smile fading slightly. Talk? About what? The fun we're having. No, this is about us. I'm ending it, she said, her voice firm. Derek's expression shifted from surprise to annoyance. You're kidding, right? You can't be serious. We have something special. Special? This was fun, but it's become a mess. I can't keep lying to Mike. I want to make things right, she replied, her resolve hardening. He stepped closer, his charm slipping away. You think this is just going to go away? You think Mike will ever trust you again after this? You're making a huge mistake. I don't care. I'm done living in a fantasy. I want to fix my marriage, Sarah said, frustration boiling over. Derek's eyes narrowed, a predatory glint surfacing. You think it's that easy? Once you've tasted this life, you can't just walk away. You'll regret this, Sarah. I'm willing to take that risk, she insisted, feeling the weight of his gaze. I won't let you control me anymore. He laughed, a cold, unsettling sound. You think you can just turn your back on me? You'll regret this choice. I'll make sure of it. I'm not afraid of you, Derek, she shot back, anger igniting her spirit. I'm doing what's right for me, and you can't stop me. With that, Sarah walked away, her heart pounding in her chest. She felt exhilarated, but the weight of Derek's threat hung over her like a storm cloud. As she returned home that evening, the tension in the air felt electric. Mike was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner, his expression unreadable. How did it go? He asked, not looking up. I told him it's over, she said, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. I'm done with him for good. Mike turned to her, his gaze piercing. And he accepted that? He didn't take it well, but I don't care. I'm choosing us, Mike. I want to work on our marriage, she replied, her heart racing. Choosing us doesn't magically fix everything, he reminded her, tension hanging in the air. I know, she said, taking a deep breath, but I'm committed to trying. I can't change the past, but I can work towards a better future. As they sat down for dinner, an uneasy silence filled the room. Each bite felt heavy, and the unspoken words lingered in the air between them. Mike glanced at her, his expression a mix of hope and skepticism. Can we really rebuild? He finally asked, his voice low. I believe we can, she replied, her heart aching with sincerity. It's going to take time, but I'm willing to put in the effort. As the days turned into weeks, Sarah tried to focus on rebuilding her relationship with Mike. They attended couples therapy, worked on their communication, and spent time together. Slowly, she felt a sense of hope return, but the shadow of Derek loomed large. Derek was relentless, sending messages and making unexpected appearances at their office. One afternoon, as Sarah was walking to her car, she heard his voice behind her. "Hey, stranger," he said, his tone casual, but there was an underlying menace. "Leave me alone, Derek," she replied, her heart racing. "Is that any way to treat someone who used to mean so much to you?" he asked, stepping closer, his gaze intense. "I'm not interested in talking to you," she insisted, her voice firm. "Are you sure? Because I've been hearing some interesting things about your little reunion with Mike. You think he's going to stick around forever?" he taunted, a smirk playing on his lips. "I don't care what you've heard," she said defiantly. "This is my life now, and you're no longer a part of it." Derek's smile faded, replaced by an icy glare. "You'll regret this, Sarah. I'll make sure of it." With that, he turned and walked away, leaving Sarah shaken. She hurried to her car, her heart pounding. The sense of dread creeping back into her life felt suffocating, but she refused to let it control her. Despite Derek's threats, Sarah remained committed to her choice. She focused on mending her marriage with Mike, attending therapy sessions together, and rebuilding the trust that had been shattered. They found joy in the little things, sharing laughter over dinners and rediscovering their connection. However, the specter of Derek still lingered, a constant reminder of her past mistakes. One evening, after a particularly uplifting therapy session, Sarah returned home feeling invigorated. She found Mike on the couch, scrolling through his phone, a furrowed brow crossing his forehead. "Everything okay?" she asked, her heart sinking at the sight of his troubled expression. "Just checking some emails," he replied, but the tension in his voice was unmistakable. As she settled next to him, she noticed a notification on his phone. An email from Derek. Her stomach dropped. What did he say? Mike hesitated before responding. "Just some work-related stuff. It's nothing," he said, but the unease in his voice told her otherwise. "Mike, I need to know if he's still contacting you," Sarah pressed, anxiety swirling in her gut. "He just wants to keep me updated on a project," Mike replied, but the discomfort in his tone was palpable. "Is he trying to manipulate you?" "I told him it was over," she said, panic rising within her. "I don't know. It feels like he's trying to stir the pot," Mike admitted, frustration evident in his voice. "I don't want to deal with him. You're the one who chose to end it." "I'm trying, but he's not going to let this go," she said, her voice trembling. "We have to figure this out together." Days turned into weeks, and Derek's influence began to seep back into Sarah's life, despite her best efforts. He continued to send her messages, each one more aggressive than the last, taunting her about her choices and threatening to expose their affair. The tension between Sarah and Mike grew, each confrontation becoming more intense as they grappled with their past and the present realities of their situation. One evening, as they sat at the dining table, the weight of unspoken words hung heavy in the air. "Sarah, we need to talk about Derek," Mike said, his voice strained. "I know. I'm trying to deal with him," she replied, her heart racing. "Trying isn't enough. He's not going to back down. We can't keep living in fear," Mike insisted, frustration bubbling over. "I can't just cut him out of my life without consequences." "He's manipulative," Sarah said, feeling overwhelmed. "Then what do you suggest?" "We can't keep hiding," he replied, his eyes searching hers. "We need to confront him once and for all." Sarah felt a surge of determination. "You're right. I can't keep living like this. We'll face him together." The next day, they arranged to meet Derek at a nearby cafe, a public space that felt safer. As they approached the table where he sat, his smirk twisted into a frown at the sight of them together. "Look who decided to show up," he said, a mocking tone in his voice. "Derek, we need to talk," Sarah said, her voice steady despite the anxiety churning in her stomach. "I'm listening," he replied, leaning back in his chair, arms crossed, a smug expression plastered on his face. "We're done," Mike stated, his voice firm. "Sarah wants nothing to do with you anymore." Derek chuckled, a sinister glint in his eyes. "You think it's that easy? You think I'll just let her walk away? She's not yours to control." Mike shot back, anger flaring. "You really believe that?" Derek said, leaning forward, his gaze icy. "I've seen the way she looks at me. You think she'll be happy with you after tasting this life?" Sarah felt her heart race, the tension in the air crackling like electricity. "I made a mistake, but I'm choosing Mike. I want to be with him. You don't get to manipulate my life anymore." Derek's smile faded, replaced by an unsettling seriousness. "You have no idea what you're getting into. I'll make sure you regret this choice." After the confrontation, Sarah felt a mix of relief and anxiety. She thought they had put Derek in his place, but the threats continued to seep into their lives like a toxic fog. Derek's presence was inescapable. He began to contact Mike directly, sending him cryptic messages and attempting to sow seeds of doubt in their relationship. One evening, Mike received a message from Derek. "Are you sure Sarah is really committed to you? You don't know the half of what she's done." As Mike read the message, a storm of emotions washed over him. He had worked so hard to rebuild trust with Sarah, but Derek's manipulative tactics were relentless. "Sarah, we need to talk," he said, his voice taut with tension. "What is it?" she asked, her heart racing. "Derek just sent me a message. He's trying to mess with my head, trying to make me doubt you," Mike said, frustration evident in his tone. "He's a liar, Mike. He's trying to tear us apart," Sarah replied, desperation creeping into her voice. "But what if he's right? What if you're still drawn to him?" he asked, his eyes searching hers for reassurance. "I'm not. I chose you and I want to be with you," she insisted, her heart pounding. "Then prove it," Mike said, the challenge hanging heavily in the air. "We need to go to the police. We can't keep letting him manipulate us." Sarah felt a surge of fear. "Do you think that will help? What if he retaliates? We have to take this seriously. We can't let him control us any longer," Mike urged, determination seeping into his voice. "I don't want to escalate this," she said, uncertainty flooding her heart. "Staying silent will only make things worse," he replied. "We need to take back control of our lives." After their confrontation with Derek, Sarah and Mike felt a weight lift from their shoulders. The air between them was filled with unspoken hope and determination. They had taken a significant step in reclaiming their lives and their relationship. Still, the reality of their situation lingered, and they knew they had to be vigilant. In the days that followed, they worked hard to establish a routine that prioritized their connection. They began attending couples therapy, where they discussed their feelings, fears, and dreams in a safe environment. Each session revealed new layers of their relationship, and Sarah felt herself gradually healing. One evening, after a particularly revealing session, they sat together on their porch, sipping wine under the stars. "I never thought I'd feel this way again," Mike said, breaking the comfortable silence. "You've shown so much strength, Sarah. It's inspiring." "I couldn't have done it without you," she replied, her voice soft but steady. "Your support means everything to me. I want to be better for us." Mike reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers. "We're in this together, and I believe we can overcome anything. You're worth fighting for." Sarah smiled, a sense of warmth flooding her heart. "And you're worth it too, Mike. I want to build a future with you." As weeks turned into months, the shadow of Derek seemed to fade. Sarah and Mike focused on nurturing their bond, discovering new interests, and setting goals for their future. They ventured on spontaneous road trips, embraced hobbies together, and enjoyed quiet evenings filled with laughter. However, Derek still lurked in the background. Occasionally, Sarah would receive cryptic messages from him, taunting her about her choices and threatening to expose her past. Each message sent chills down her spine, but she refused to let it derail her progress. With Mike by her side, they reported Derek's harassment to the authorities and took steps to ensure their safety. One Saturday afternoon, While they were exploring a local farmer's market, Sarah felt a surge of happiness. She turned to Mike, her eyes sparkling. "Look at all these fresh fruits and vegetables. We should cook something special tonight." "Absolutely. Let's make a feast," Mike said, his enthusiasm infectious. They wandered from stall to stall, selecting ingredients for their dinner. As they prepared their meal together later that evening, the kitchen filled with laughter and the rich aroma of their cooking. They reminisced about the journey they had taken and how far they had come. "Remember when we used to take each other for granted?" Sarah asked, stirring the sauce in the pot. "Yeah, those days feel like a different lifetime," Mike replied, chopping vegetables with precision. "I think we've learned to appreciate each other in ways we never did before." With dinner finally ready, they set the table, lit candles, and poured glasses of wine. As they sat down to eat, Sarah looked across the table at Mike, a wave of gratitude washing over her. "Thank you for believing in us, Mike. I know it wasn't easy." "I believe in you and I believe in us," he replied, raising his glass. "To new beginnings." They clinked their glasses together, the sound ringing like a promise in the air. As they savored their meal, the conversation flowed effortlessly, punctuated by laughter and stories of their shared dreams. That night, after dinner, they cuddled on the couch, watching a movie. As Sarah leaned into Mike, she felt a sense of peace enveloping her. "You know, I never thought I could feel this happy again after everything." "Neither did I," Mike confessed, his fingers gently tracing her arm. "But here we are, stronger than ever." As they settled into each other, Sarah felt a deep sense of relief. The storm had passed, and although the road ahead would have its challenges, she was ready to face them with Mike. Together, they had rebuilt their love and forged a new path forward, one that was bright with possibility and hope. As she drifted off to sleep that night, she knew that they were not just surviving but thriving, ready to embrace whatever the future held. No longer bound by the shadows of their past, Sarah and Mike had stepped into the light, hand in hand, ready to face the world together.